Subscribe, like, comment and share to support the channel. Thank you for the support. Trade-on thanks someone for visiting his city of GUIs. He is seen talking to the blue-haired priest who sat across him. He tells her that he would like to apologize for the fact that they had to talk in the office like this, considering that their greeting room had been destroyed and with his current state, but she tells him not to worry about her. Trade-on then asks her about the purpose behind her visit, as it was pretty rare for the Blue Flame of the Torch sect to go on a pilgrimage like this. She takes out a piece of paper and places it onto the table while telling Trade-on to look at it. Seeing the paper was a surprise to Trade-on as he looks at it. She then asks him if he had seen the man that was on the paper. Trade-on couldn't believe the ugly drawing but recognizes it as our priest Marnak. Trade-on thinks deeply before asking her who the man was that the Blue Flame of the Torch sect was looking for. She tells him that it was for a personal reason. Trade-on then tells her that he was sorry as nobody came into his mind, and if that was all, he suggested that she returns since he didn't have any more time to spare during times like this. Of course, she said, and then she took her leave as Trade-on watches her. He thought deeply about how it doesn't look like she has good intentions for looking for Marnak, but he thought about how Marnak would be fine even if he doesn't tell her. We return back to our boys after they had defeated a bunch of the snow spiders. Carmen's action of stabbing the corpse drew Marnak's attention. He then asks him about what he was doing. Carmen tells him with a happy look on his face that he was extracting the venom sac from the snow spider. Marnak was curious about the venom sac as Carmen explains to him that the effects of its anesthesia are so great that they're pretty useful in different situations. He added on that it was pretty good to apply on arrow tips and that they could sell it for plenty as is. Hearing that made Marnak laugh as he asks him how he was aware of something like that. Carmen reveals to him that he had participated in plenty of monster hunts and that there was nothing better than learning through practice. He says this as he cuts the vein of the venom sac. Marnak lends away from the massive amount of blood, telling Carmen that it splashes a lot more than he thought and decided to take care of it since he was already covered in blood. So Marnak asks him about where the venom sac is. Carmen wore a smile on his face as he tells him that they were half a day away from Kelton, so he was willing to teach him how to extract the venom sac so that they could do it together. Carmen then suggests that they head to the city and have a nice shower. Marnak was happy to hear that and tells him that it sounds good. Soon enough the guards of some town were alerted to something outside their walls. It was Carmen and Marnak who were seen by them as they struggled to walk in the deep snow. A single guard runs out to them to greet them, but his face was filled with shock as he asks them how they got here. Marnak and Carmen were confused over the question as Marnak answers that they simply walked all the way here. But the guard informs them that Kelton had been blocked off for the last 3 days, all because of monsters. Hearing that news made Marnak curious as he asks the guard to tell them the details. The guard explains that the monsters' attacks have become more common recently. However, when they search the attack sites, not only are there no remnants but there were also no corpses. Carmen wonders if the guard was talking about the bodies of people who were attacked by the snow spiders too, as he hinted that it was pretty odd. Carmen knew that snow spiders were monsters that suck blood out from their prey, so it's pretty difficult for them to not leave anything behind. "You too!" shouted a voice that grabs their attention. Another guard appears and shouted that Lordstern was asking to see the both of them. He soon approaches Marnak and Carmen to tell them that he was the one that was going to lead them to the Lord's estate. Both of our guys then exchanged a brief look with one another. A man appears with thankful eyes as he asks if Marnak was the one they called the Demon Slayer. He tells them of how they couldn't understand how glad he was to hear that they've come to visit his city. Marnak informs the man that they had already heard about the monster situation. The man was glad to hear that as it was the reason why he had called for the two of them. He explains to them since that they were already aware, but the current situation was not just an act caused by monsters. He reveals to them that it was being organized by a worshipper of an evil spirit. Hearing that made Marnak silent before he talked about how the man had blocked off the entire city. Even Marnak questioned whether it was too big of an act for a single evil spirit worshipper, but Lordstern replied that it was according to what the priests have said. Lordstern reveals to them that there was at least 4 different sects, and that they were all working together to block Kelton off from the other cities. But no matter how he thinks about it, Kelton was a pretty ordinary city with nothing notable. Lordstern himself couldn't understand why something like this is happening after he was appointed as the new lord. He started to shed tears as he thought about how if his father was still alive, then he was sure that he would have thought of a way to get them out of this situation, or at very least, they have plenty of supplies to last them. He also mentions that the morale of the troops were pretty good, so they weren't that unfortunate, but since they were suddenly closed off from the rest, nobody is aware that Kelton is being blocked from everyone else. which was why Lordstrand needed someone to get through the monsters and spread the news to other cities. He finally tells Marnak and Carmen that the city needed a suicide corps to fulfill the task. Lordstrand looks at them with a nervous face while waiting for their reply to his request. Marnak took a moment to take everything in before answering the Lord. He soon spoke out and informs the Lord that with this job, he would like to help out as much as possible. Mother was furious with Marnak as she shouts out murder. Marnak questions her by what she meant by he should have slapped him and walked away. He tells her that she was going too far. He then shows off the object in his hand, telling Mother that at least they were receiving this item from the Seekers of Flow, since it's an item that can only be found in the western desert regions. Marnak never thought that he would have been able to get one here. He continues to tell Mother that they wouldn't have to worry about cleaning up after using Slayer, his chainsaw sword. But Mother continued to shout murder at him, but he tells her that she was the one who told him that it would cut cleaner if he placed it inside like this. Marnak soon unsummons the item. Slapping his hands together, he asks Mother about living life to the fullest as the best thing you could do. Looking at a window of his inventory, he tells Mother that what he just said was something he had always wanted to say. Thinking back to Lordstrand, the real reason why Marnak decided to take up the Lord's offer was because he thought this might be an omen that the main quest would be starting soon. And that there was one reason he came to this conclusion. It's due to the fact that 4 different sects were working with one another. Although the title of an evil spirit seems pretty intimidating, in this game, it doesn't really have much meaning. It's merely a title that the main gods give to some other gods, resulting in a stigma against them. Persecution comes with it too. However, one thing is certain, among those who worship the evil spirits, it is rare to find anyone who is mentally sane. So unlike the sects under the main god that collaborate to deal with evil spirits, sects that serve evil spirits rarely work with each other. That was why Marnak felt that something was going on. For evil spirit sects to work with each other and surround the city, this is not something ordinary. The scene now changes to Marnak riding a horse through the snowy land and the Carmen follows behind him closely, but something behind him catches his attention. He turns to see that a bunch of snow spiders had finally appeared from behind them. Marnak smiles at this event as he knew that the time has come. He informs Carmen that he was going to grab their attention, but Carmen was shocked by his suggestion and asked him about what he was talking about. Carmen tells Marnak that even if it was him, it's too dangerous for him to handle all of them. Marnak tells him that they will be caught if this continues, and that at this speed, he was sure that Carmen was well aware that they wouldn't be able to outrun them. Reinforcements, said Marnak as Carmen looks in horror. He tells him to make sure to bring them as he lets go of the reins of the horse he was riding on. Marnak had thrown himself towards the incoming packs of snow spiders. Carmen could only shout out to Marnak, but our boy simply smiles with joy, asking Mother if she thought that his line just now was cool. A heavy crash soon occurred as a massive amount of snow was blown up. Carmen could only close his eyes and continued to ride forward. The other members of the group soon took notice of something that was happening behind them. The monsters that were following them soon stopped in front of something. With the smoke and snow was a bright green light that emitted from the center of the explosion from before. Marnak stood up with his eye glowing green, telling Mother that he couldn't believe her. He wore a crazy smile while questioning Mother about why she thought his acting was interesting. His chainsaw sword started to rev itself up, as he tells Mother that he would take what she said as a compliment. With a battle-crazed look in his eyes and his trusty chainsaw sword by his side, Marnak asks if they should start looking for them, those evil spirit worshippers who are hiding behind the covers. The massive wave of monsters started to rush towards our boy, who was holding onto 2 swords this time. Like a battle-crazed maniac, he charges into the horde of monsters and slices and dices them into pieces with ease. With his chainsaw blade revving up even more, he continued to cut through the horde of monsters. The other monsters started to fear Marnak as they watched their own kind turn into a bloody mess after he was done with them. Marnak finally stops his rampage as the background was filled with the blood of the monsters that he had cut through. He laughs and smiles after the fight, commenting that if this happens every day, he might need to start carrying a bathtub around with him. Mother tells him something, but he replies that they can talk about that later. Marnak appears before a massive mountain, noting that they must know that he was coming, but it looks like they have no intention to come and greet him. Marnak couldn't believe that this was the treatment that he was receiving right now as he ventures into the darkness. Old and ruined barrels and wheels of carriages are seen around. As Marnak walked inside the cave and looked around, he remembered them mentioning that the attacked carriages were empty, and concluded that it must be because the monster looted all of them. But a sudden appearance of a hand causes Marnak to pause in his tracks. He then takes a close look at it. He notices that the hand belonged to a body that had been sucked dry by the snow spiders. He looks elsewhere where commenting that he can understand them enjoying a nice meal, but was horrified to learn that they had to use the leftovers as a form of decoration. Personally, Marnak couldn't really agree with some of the design choices they made. Mother shouts out murder, but Marnak tells her not to worry as she didn't have to worry about him letting his guard down. But as he continued to walk deeper into the caves, he questions Mother about how many humans does she think that they have managed to eat. Marnak notices that there were too many bodies for them to eat finish within 3 days, making him wonder if they were raising any offsprings. But something catches Marnak's attention as he entered a new area in the cave. He sees that the tunnels up to this point were pretty big, making it look like as if multiple giants lived together in this area, but also the divinity that was constantly in his tracks. Multiple red eyes are seen as Marnak tells someone to come out. Those with arachnophobia should skip the next few minutes of the video. A massive dark blob of red eyes soon appeared from the ceiling directly above from where Marnak stood. He tells the giant spider that he was well aware that it was here as multiple smaller spiders began to crawl down the walls. But the giant spider didn't reply back to Marnak. Instead it lunges itself towards him from the ceiling. Mother shouts out murder to alert Marnak. The giant spider then lands with a massive impact onto the ground as Marnak dodges away from it. With his green aura unleashed, he tells Mother to please draw the line of corruption for him. Green flames began to etch itself into the ground around Marnak. With a smile on his face, he tells Mother that he was going to need her authority as the giant spider stood before him. He begins to summon a corruption giant from the ceiling, telling Mother that tonight he will be sacrificing the head of the human-eating spider for her. Our big white boy slams his fist deep into the human-eating spider that causes it to smash into the ground. The impact of the attack reveals that Marnak had unleashed his tattoo skill as well, but the human-eating spider wasn't done in yet as it counterattacks by stabbing its legs into the corruption giant. It lets out a fierce scream as it rushes our big white boy into the walls of the cave. The two titans continue to battle it out as Marnak rushes in to help the corruption giant while thinking that the human-eating spider looks about double the size of his giant. As he rushed in to join the fight, Marnak knew that he needed to find a way to help out. With another slice and dice attack to the smaller spiders, Marnak decided to mow down the numbers of the smaller spiders first, all because he could sense that the energy is concentrated within the spider queen's body, which was why he was making sure that he doesn't damage it. Mother then gives him some advice, which made Marnak understand that there must be a weak spot somewhere on the spider queen's body. But Mother shouts at him to look up. Marnak looks up and could see another spider that was about to body slam him back into his own world. But our boy ain't an NPC, so he slices it in half. He soon comes to a realization about something. With another heavy step that breaks the ground beneath him, he realizes that the divinity throughout its body, he'll have to just cut off all of its legs. Marnak sends himself flying towards the corruption giant, ordering it run straight ahead. The corruption giant turns its head towards Marnak upon hearing that command. Holding onto a leash, Marnak tells it that he was going to help. As he ran along the walls of the cave, he gives out another order to the corruption giant to make sure to stop the spider queen from moving, with a loud roar to indicate that it understood Marnak's orders. It uses its various arms to grab onto as much of the spider queen's legs as possible. The spider queen was then stunned to see what the corruption giant was doing to it. Marnak continues to run along the walls of the cave like a speedster, knowing that even if it's big, a spider is still a spider. The corruption giant had succeeded in holding onto the spider queen as it held its back against the wall that Marnak was running along. Marnak then visualizes the area where he was going to strike. All he needed to do was to sever the thinnest part of its body. Marnak takes another swing at it, slicing it harder this time. The spider queen was alarmed to see where Marnak was attacking it, but he doesn't stop there as he readies himself for another swing. Bam! He unleashes a flurry of strikes to cut down the spider bitch, peeling off its shell, piece by piece with each strike he gave it. The spider queen couldn't do anything to stop him as she continued to be held down by our big white boy. With a couple more strikes to its body, the corruption giant could sense that the end was near. Marnak had finally unleashed an attack that severs the spider queen's body into two. The corruption giant then lifts up the beaten spider queen while posing in a victory stance. With a tightened grip around its leg for the last time, he flings the massive bitch forward towards Marnak. Landed. Our boy does a superhero landing after slicing the hoe into two, but the corruption giant appears behind him with a pissed-off look. Our boy knew exactly what he did to it from before. He turns around to apologize to it for running away previously. I don't know if our big boy liked the apology as he just lets out another fierce roar into the air. "Shit!" shouted someone as Marnak hears it. "Shit! Shit! Shit! Shit!" said the person repeatedly. A long-haired man appears from within the Spider Queen's mouth. Marnak looks at him and tells him that he knew that it was a person, but the person replied with "AF this." He shouts at Marnak, asking him who he thought he was to ruin his plans like this. He continues to curse at Marnak as he was just another follower of an evil spirit like he was, as well as asking him if he understood how long it took for him to gain control over the Spider Queen. But Marnak simply asks him about his purpose for surrounding Kelton. The man replied with "Why the F should I tell you?" This response requires a reply in the form of a sword being pierced into his body. He screams out in pain over being stabbed, telling Marnak that it hurts and that he was a bitch for doing that to him. But Marnak remained calm and serious. He continues to question the long-haired man about why he was surrounding Kelton, but all the man replied with was the fact that the stabbing hurts a lot. So Marnak continues to question him about the purpose of surrounding Kelton. The long-haired man soon gave a smile. He finally tells Marnak that he won't ever tell him even if he died. So what was he going to do now? Marnak simply replies that he understood. This reply shocks the long-haired man as he didn't expect this response from him. With another swing of his sword, Marnak beheads the fool who didn't answer his question. The beheaded man soon burned away with Mother's green flames, giving Marnak 1000 divinity. As he sheaths his sword away, Marnak wonders how many worshipper would tell them the truth behind everything. Mother shouts murder to answer his question. Her answer was 3, so Marnak bets his money on 4. He walks away as the green flames burned everything that he had killed. Thanks for watching the latest part from the voice of Manhwa. Subscribe for more content and don't forget to comment below what you want to see in the future. Like and share for more.